My brother texted me right before his wedding. "You're out. Real family only." I stared at my phone, the blood draining from my face. I had paid for almost everything. The flowers, the venue, the catering. I replied, "Perfect. Then real family can pay their own wedding bills." They laughed at me in the group chat all night. But by morning, they were begging. They didn't know I was holding on to a secret that would absolutely destroy his life. Before I tell you what happened, grab a warm glass of water, sit down, and listen to me tell this whole story. I was sitting in the driver's seat of my car, staring through the windshield at the sprawling green lawns of the Oak Ridge Country Club. It was a beautiful Saturday afternoon in early November. The sky was that crisp, sharp blue that only happens right before the weather turns freezing. I could see the white wooden chairs perfectly aligned in rows on the grass. I could see the floral archway swaying slightly in the breeze. I could see the guests arriving in their expensive suits and elegant dresses, laughing, holding small glasses of champagne, totally unaware that the ground beneath this entire celebration was about to cave in. I was wearing a dark navy suit. My hands were resting on the steering wheel, and my knuckles were completely white. In the cup holder next to me sat a small, cheap plastic USB drive. It was silver with a black cap. Probably cost $5 at a drugstore, but the video file saved on that drive was powerful enough to blow my entire family apart. I didn't want to be there. I really didn't. If you had asked me 24 hours earlier, I would have told you I was going to spend the Saturday sitting on my couch, ignoring my phone, and trying to forget that I even had a brother. They had made it crystal clear that I was not welcome. They had stripped my name from the guest list, humiliated me in front of our entire extended family, and told me I was nothing to them. But I couldn't stay away, because of Chloe. Chloe was the bride. She was a good woman. She was kind, she was trusting, and she loved my brother, Nathan, with a purity that he absolutely did not deserve. She thought she was marrying a great guy. She thought she was marrying her soulmate. She had no idea that she was walking into a trap, and I was the only person on earth who held the key to let her out. I looked down at the USB drive again. My stomach churned. I'm not a vindictive person. I'm 31 years old. I work as a senior analyst in financial compliance, and my entire life is built around rules, order, and keeping the peace. For my whole life, I was the fixer. I was the guy who cleaned up the messes. If something broke, I bought a new one. If a bill was overdue, I paid it. If a family gathering went sideways, I was the one who swallowed my pride and apologized just to make the screaming stop. They didn't let me be the good guy today. They pushed me into a corner. They took my money, they took my dignity, and then they slammed the door in my face. They thought I would just take it like I always did. They thought I would go home, cry into a pillow, and eventually come crawling back to them with my wallet open. They were wrong. I took a deep breath, grabbed the USB drive, and slipped it into the inside pocket of my suit jacket. The fabric felt heavy against my chest. I opened the car door and stepped out onto the gravel parking lot. The cold air hit my face, waking me up, sharpening my senses. I didn't know exactly how this was going to play out. My plan was simple. Find Chloe, hand her the drive quietly, and walk away. I didn't want a public spectacle. I didn't want to ruin the aesthetic of their perfect day. I just wanted her to know the truth before she signed a legally binding document with a man who was actively betraying her. I started walking toward the venue. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a hammer. Every step felt like walking through deep water. I was terrified, but I was also strangely calm. For the first time in my life, I wasn't acting as my family's safety net. I was the scissors cutting the net to pieces. Let me take you back to where this all started so you can understand why a brother would do something like this. To understand Nathan, you have to understand my parents. My father, Robert, is a man who values appearances above oxygen. My mother, Mary, is a woman who believes the sun rises and sets strictly on her youngest child. Nathan is 3 years younger than me, and from the moment he could walk, he was the golden child. He was charismatic, athletic, and he had this smile that could get him out of anything. I was the opposite. I was quiet, I liked numbers, and I preferred staying in my room reading over going out and being the center of attention. I was the reliable one. In my family, reliable was just a polite word for invisible until we need something. The dynamic was set early on. If Nathan broke a window, I was told I should have been watching him. If Nathan got a bad grade, I was told I should have helped him study. As we got older, the stakes got higher, but the game stayed exactly the same. When I got my first job out of college and started earning a decent salary, the requests started rolling in. It was never a direct demand. It was always wrapped in guilt. Elijah, your brother is struggling to make rent this month. He's just finding his footing. You make good money, help him out. Elijah, Nathan's car broke down. He needs it for work. Be a good big brother. I always paid. I paid because I wanted them to look at me the way they looked at him. I wanted my mother to hug me and tell me she was proud of me. I wanted my father to pat me on the back and say I was a good man. I thought I could buy my way into their hearts by being useful. It's a pathetic thing to admit, but it's the truth. I was starved for their approval. The biggest disaster happened 2 years ago. Nathan wanted to buy a sports car. A Porsche. He didn't have the income to qualify for the loan, and his credit score was a joke. He came to me, begging. He promised me he was getting a promotion. He promised me he would make every single payment. He swore on his life that this car was going to help him secure high-end real estate clients. My parents chimed in, telling me I was suffocating his potential if I didn't help him. Against every instinct in my body, I co-signed the loan. You can guess what happened. 3 months in, the payments stopped. I found out when the bank called me. I confronted Nathan, and he brushed it off. Man, it's just a tight month. Chill out. He didn't pay the next month either. My credit score started to tank. I had to step in and start making the $1,000 monthly payments out of my own pocket just to save my own financial future. When I went to my parents about it, my father actually yelled at me. He said, "You make plenty of money, Elijah. Stop hounding your brother, he's under a lot of stress. You're trying to ruin his confidence." I ended up paying off the car. It wiped out a huge chunk of my savings. Nathan kept the car. He drove it to family dinners and parked it proudly in the driveway, while I parked my 6-year-old sedan on the street. No one ever thanked me. It was just expected. That was my role. I was the ATM that didn't require a PIN. My best friend, Samuel, saw right through it. We were having beers one night, and he looked at me and said, "You know they don't love you, right? They love what you do for them. If you stop paying, you stop existing to them." I got angry at Samuel that night. I defended my family. I told him he didn't understand our bond. But deep down, in the quiet, dark parts of my mind, I knew he was absolutely right. I was just too terrified to test the theory. I was terrified of being alone. I thought a toxic family was better than no family at all. I was holding onto a rope that was tearing my hands to shreds, just because I was afraid of falling. When Nathan announced his engagement to Chloe, the family went into overdrive. Chloe was a sweetheart. She was a middle school teacher, incredibly patient, and genuinely warm. The first time I met her, she actually asked me questions about my job and listened to the answers. She didn't look past me to see what Nathan was doing. I liked her immediately. The wedding planning started, and almost instantly the financial complaints began. Nathan and Chloe wanted a big, beautiful wedding at a vineyard, but they simply didn't have the cash. Chloe's parents were retired and living on a fixed income. They contributed what they could, which covered her dress and some minor details. The rest of the burden fell on my family. Or more accurately, it fell on me. It started with a phone call from my mother. "Elijah, Nathan is heartbroken. They might have to settle for a cheap hall reception. You know how much this means to him. He's your only brother. You have a great salary and you're single, so you don't have kids to worry about. It would be a beautiful gift if you could help with the venue deposit." I transferred $5,000 the next day. Then came the catering. "Elijah, the caterer needs a 50% down payment by Friday or they lose the date. Nathan is stressed to tears. Please, just cover this one thing." I paid the caterer. Then the florist. Nathan wanted these extravagant white floral arrangements. Mrs. Caldwell, the local florist, needed a massive retainer. Nathan actually came to my apartment for that one. He sat on my couch, looking incredibly sad, and said, "Man, I hate asking you this. I feel like a failure, but I want to give Chloe the wedding of her dreams. I swear to you I'm getting a massive bonus at the end of the year, and I will pay you back every cent. You're the best brother a guy could ask for." He called me the best brother. That was all it took. I signed the contract with Mrs. Caldwell and paid the retainer. By the time October rolled around, I had my name on the contracts and my credit card on file for the venue, the catering, the DJ, and the florist. I was out nearly $25,000. It was a massive hit to my finances. I had to delay putting money into my own retirement accounts. But every time I felt a pang of anxiety, I told myself it was for family. I told myself that when the wedding day came, my parents would raise a glass, look at me with pride, and acknowledge what I had done. I pictured my dad patting my shoulder. I pictured Nathan hugging me. I was heavily involved in the planning, too. Not because I wanted to be, but because Nathan was lazy. If Mrs. Caldwell needed to confirm the table centerpieces, Nathan wouldn't answer his phone, so she called me. If the DJ needed the playlist approved, I was the one tracking Nathan down to get an answer. I was basically the unpaid wedding planner funding the entire operation. Chloe was incredibly grateful. She sent me a handwritten thank you note that actually made me tear up. She wrote, "We couldn't do this without you, Elijah. You are truly the rock of this family." For a few weeks I felt good. I felt secure. I felt like I had finally bought my ticket to being a respected member of the family. I had paid my dues. I belonged. Then came the Tuesday night at HomeGoods. It was a Tuesday evening, about 3 weeks before the wedding. I was standing in a HomeGoods store. The store smelled heavily of cinnamon candles and artificial pine. I had a shopping cart, and inside it was a beautiful, large silver picture frame. I was buying it to put a photo of Nathan and Chloe inside as an extra little wedding gift. I was actually smiling. I felt peaceful. I was standing in line at the register, surrounded by people buying throw pillows and ceramic pumpkins. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting an email from work. It was a text from Nathan. 6 words. "You're out of the wedding. Real family only." I stopped breathing. I literally forgot how to pull air into my lungs. I stared at the screen, reading the words over and over again. "You're out of the wedding. Real family only." I thought it was a joke, a typo, a mistake. I quickly opened the family group chat. There were already a dozen messages flooding in. Dylan, our obnoxious cousin, had sent a laughing emoji. Finally, I thought we'd have to deal with Mr. Buskill all weekend. Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, replied, "It's for the best, Nathan. We want the energy to be fun and light. Elijah always brings the mood down." Then Nathan typed, "Yeah, I just don't want his depressing vibe ruining my big day. He acts like he owns us just because he chipped in a few bucks. Let's keep the energy clean. Elijah's not really part of this anymore." My cousin Wyatt chimed in. "Didn't he pay for the food though?" Nathan replied instantly, "Yeah, well that's his problem. He can consider it a tax write-off for his boring life. If he shows up, security is kicking him out." Aunt Patricia sent a heart emoji to that message. I stood in the middle of the store, frozen. I looked for my mother's name in the chat. I waited for her to type. I waited for her to shut this down, to scold Nathan, to defend me. She was active in the chat. I saw her little typing bubble appear. My mother wrote, "Make sure you update the seating chart, honey. We can give Elijah's seat to Uncle Dave." My heart physically hurt. It felt like a hot knife being twisted right in the center of my chest. Not one person defended me. Not my mother, not my father, not my aunts, not my cousins. They were actively cheering for my exclusion. And the phrase "real family" only echoed in my head until it was deafening. I wasn't real family. I was just the wallet. And now that the bills were paid, the wallet was being discarded. A woman behind me in line cleared her throat. "Sir, the register is open." I looked at her. I looked at the silver picture frame in my cart. I didn't say a word. I just turned around, left the cart exactly where it was in the middle of the aisle, and walked out the front doors. The cold October air hit my face in the parking lot. I got into my car and shut the door. I didn't turn the engine on. I just sat there in the absolute silence. It's a terrifying kind of silence, the kind where you can hear your own blood rushing in your ears. I didn't cry. I was too shocked to cry. The betrayal was so absolute, so complete, that it bypassed sadness entirely and went straight into something cold, hard, and sharp. They thought they had won. They thought they had secured my money and successfully kicked me out of the picture. They thought I was going to crawl into a hole and accept my humiliation. I pulled my phone out. The group chat was still pinging with jokes at my expense. I stared at Nathan's message. Acts like he owns us just because he chipped in a few bucks. My thumb hovered over the screen. I felt a fundamental shift inside my brain. The desperate, pathetic older brother who just wanted to be loved died in the front seat of that car. Something else woke up. I drove home entirely on autopilot. I didn't turn on the radio. When I walked into my apartment, I didn't turn on the lights. I walked straight to my home office, sat down at my desk, and opened my laptop. The blue light from the screen illuminated my face in the dark room. I logged into my banking portal. I looked at my checking and savings accounts. I looked at the credit card balances. Every single high number was a direct result of my family. The Porsche payments, the venue deposit, the catering, the flowers, the DJ. I opened my email and found the digital contracts. I opened the venue contract first. Right there, clearly printed under Responsible Billing Party, was my name. Elijah. Not Nathan. Not Robert. Me. They had told me I wasn't real family. They told me I was out of the wedding. Okay, fine. I found the cancellation link for the venue. It brought up a warning screen. Are you sure you want to cancel this event? You will forfeit your 20% non-refundable deposit. My hand trembled slightly on the mouse. 20% was a lot of money. Canceling meant I was burning cash. It meant I was severing the tie permanently. A small, pathetic voice in the back of my head whispered, "If you do this, they will never forgive you. You will lose them forever." I gritted my teeth. My jaw was locked so tight it ached. I pictured Dylan's laughing emoji. I pictured my mother giving my seat to Uncle Dave. I pictured Nathan calling my contribution a tax write-off. I clicked Confirm Cancellation. A green checkmark appeared. The venue was gone. I didn't stop. I opened the catering portal. I clicked Cancel. Forfeit the fee? Yes. Done. The food was gone. I opened the DJ's contract. Emailed him directly. Event canceled due to lack of funds from the groom. Please release the date. Sent. The music was gone. Then came Mrs. Caldwell, the florist. She was a sweet older lady, and I didn't want to mess up her schedule through an automated system. I picked up my phone and called her directly. It was late, but she answered. "Elijah, is everything okay?" she asked, sounding concerned. "Mrs. Caldwell, I'm so sorry to call you this late." My voice was shockingly steady, devoid of any emotion. "I need to cancel the floral order for the wedding." Immediately, there was a pause. Oh my goodness, did the wedding get called off? "No," I said coldly. "The groom just informed me that I am no longer part of the family, and therefore my financing for the event has been permanently withdrawn. Keep the deposit for your trouble, but do not deliver a single flower." "Elijah, I understand. The order is canceled." "I'm so sorry, dear." "Thank you, Mrs. Caldwell." I hung up. It took me less than 20 minutes to systematically dismantle a wedding that took 6 months to plan. I sat back in my chair. The trembling had stopped. My chest felt incredibly light, like a massive stone had been lifted off my ribs. I picked up my phone. The group chat was still active. Aunt Patricia was now discussing the color of her hat. I typed my first message of the night. "Fine. Then real family can cover their own bills." I didn't wait for a response. I started attaching the PDF files of the cancellation confirmations. Venue, cancelled. Catering, cancelled. Florist, cancelled. DJ, cancelled. I let the documents hit the chat like artillery shells. Bam, 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 bam. Then I typed one final sentence. Good luck with the clean energy. I turned my phone completely off, threw it onto the sofa, went into my bedroom, and fell asleep instantly. It was the best sleep I had gotten in 2 years. When I woke up the next morning, I made myself a cup of coffee. I took my time. I stood by the kitchen window, watching the traffic below, sipping the hot, bitter coffee. I felt utterly invincible. Then I turned my phone on. It exploded. The notifications flooded the screen so fast the phone actually froze for a few seconds. 42 missed calls. Over 200 text messages. The group chat, which had been a comedy club the night before, had turned into a burning building. I scrolled to the top of the morning's messages to read the progression of their panic. Nathan, 7 a.m. Wait, what is this? Elijah, what the hell did you do? Nathan, 7:15 a.m. The venue just emailed me. They said the reservation is cancelled. Elijah, pick up your damn phone. Aunt Patricia, 7:30 a.m. Elijah, this isn't funny. Stop throwing a tantrum. Nathan, 8 a.m. The caterer is gone too. Are you insane? You can't do this. You're ruining my life. I smiled. Cold, hard smile. Then my phone started ringing in my hand. It was my mother. I watched the screen light up. Usually, I would answer on the first ring, terrified of making her angry. This time, I let it ring 4 times before I hit accept. Hello, I said casually. Elijah Thomas. My mother screamed into the phone. Her voice was shrill, completely unhinged. What is wrong with you? You need to call those vendors right now and fix this. You fix this right now. I can't, I said calmly. I'm not real family. I shouldn't be involved in family business. Stop acting like a child, she snapped. Your brother was just stressed. He was blowing off steam. You do not blow up a family event out of spite. You are acting like a bitter, jealous monster. Spite, I repeated, my grip tightening on the mug. Mom, you guys laughed while he humiliated me. You gave my seat away to Uncle Dave. I'm just respecting Nathan's wishes. He didn't want my depressing vibe there. Now he doesn't have it. Or my money. You are ruining his big day because your feelings got hurt. It's not always about you, Elijah. Call the bank. No, I said. Excuse me? I said no. Have Nathan pay for it. He's got that big bonus coming, right? She started sobbing. Fake, dramatic sobs meant to guilt trip me. How could you do this to your own blood? You're tearing this family apart. You tore it apart, Mom. I just stopped paying the rent on the illusion. I hung up. Not 2 minutes later, my father called. I answered. Elijah. My father's voice was low, rumbling with authority. The voice that used to make me shrink. You are embarrassing this family. You are humiliating us in front of Chloe's parents. I am ordering you to reinstate those contracts. Did you read the chat, Dad? I asked. Did you read what he said about me? Words are words. You are brothers. You don't take the nuclear option over a joke. He was yelling now. You always do this. You hold your money over our heads like a weapon. You're acting like a bitter ex-wife in a divorce. Fix it, or so help me God, you are dead to me. I let his threat hang in the air for a second. The old me would have panicked. The old me would have begged for forgiveness. You can't fire me, Dad, I said softly. I quit. I hung up on him, too. A few hours later, Mrs. Caldwell called me back. She sounded shaken. Elijah, your brother Nathan just called the shop. He was screaming at my staff. He tried to give us your old credit card number over the phone to force us to reinstate the order. My jaw dropped. The absolute audacity. Did it go through? No, she said. I told him the card was blocked and the contract was in your name. He threatened to sue me. I am so sorry, Mrs. Caldwell. Please block his number. He tried to steal from me. He tried to use my old card data to force the payment. The gloves weren't just off. They were incinerated. Later that afternoon, the adrenaline started to wear off, leaving me feeling exhausted. I was sitting on my couch, scrolling mindlessly through social media, when a post from Chloe popped up on my feed. It was a picture of her and Nathan from a few months ago. The caption read, "Going through a major crisis right now with the wedding venue and vendors. Please keep us in your prayers. Nathan is working so hard to fix this. I love him so much. He's my rock." My stomach plummeted. She had no idea. Nathan was probably spinning a massive lie, telling her the vendors went bankrupt or that I had stolen the money from them. She was defending a man who was actively manipulating her. Looking at her innocent, smiling face in that photo triggered a memory I had buried deep down. A memory from New Year's Eve almost 9 months ago. Nathan had thrown a party at his apartment. I was there, keeping a low profile, mostly nursing a beer in the corner. Around 1 a.m., the party was winding down. I went down the dark hallway to find the guest bathroom. As I walked past the spare bedroom, I heard voices. The door was cracked open about 2 inches. The light was off, but the street lamp outside illuminated the room just enough. I saw Nathan, and I saw Jessica. Jessica was Nathan's ex-girlfriend, a toxic, manipulative woman he had dated in college. They were tangled up together on the bed. I froze in the hallway, completely paralyzed by shock. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and fumbled to turn on the flashlight so I could see down the dark hall. Instead, my thumb hit the video record button. Through the crack in the door, my phone recorded exactly 18 seconds of footage. The visual was dark and shaky, mostly showing their silhouettes. But the audio was perfectly, devastatingly clear. I heard Jessica laugh. A low, mocking sound. "What about Chloe? Doesn't she think you're getting married?" Nathan scoffed. His voice was unmistakable. "Chloe's fine. She's safe. She's a good girl, you know? She's just a safety net. She'll take care of the house and the kids. But I don't love her the way I love you. You're the one I'm crazy about. She's just comfortable." I had stopped recording, backed away silently, and left the apartment. I never told anyone. I convinced myself it was a drunken mistake, a one-time slip-up. I convinced myself it wasn't my place to ruin their engagement. I was a coward. I wanted to keep the peace. But sitting on my couch, reading Chloe's post about Nathan being her rock, the guilt washed over me like a tidal wave. She wasn't his rock. She was his safety net, just like I was. We were both just resources to him. He was going to use her, drain her, and probably cheat on her for the rest of her life. I opened the hidden folder on my phone. I clicked the video. I listened to Nathan's voice call her a safety net. This wasn't just about my money anymore. This wasn't just about me getting revenge for being kicked out. This was about saving a decent woman from signing her life away to a sociopath. My phone buzzed. A text from my cousin Wyatt. "Hey man, checking in. That was brutal what Nathan said. You okay? You're not gonna do anything crazy, right?" Wyatt had never checked on me a day in his life. He was fishing for information. He wanted to report back to Nathan. I typed back, "I'm fine, Wyatt. I'm completely done." I knew Wyatt would screenshot that and send it to Nathan. Let them think I was backing down. Let them think the storm was over. The next evening, there was a violent pounding on my apartment door. I looked through the peephole. It was Nathan. He looked awful. His hair was messy, his eyes were bloodshot, and he was pacing like a caged animal. I opened the door, leaving the security chain attached. "What do you want?" "Open the damn door, Elijah," he hissed, trying to shove it open, but the chain caught it. "You think you're so smart? You think you can just ruin my life and hide?" "You ruined your own life, Nathan," I said smoothly. "I just stopped funding it. Chloe is crying her eyes out," he yelled, pointing a finger at me through the gap in the door. "We have no venue. We have no food. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Her parents are asking questions. You have to wire the money to my account right now so I can book a new place." "I'm not asking. I'm telling you." I actually laughed. A harsh, dry sound. "Are you insane? You humiliate me, kick me out of the family, tell everyone I'm a loser, and now you're demanding a wire transfer? You really are delusional. His face twisted with pure rage. You are pathetic. You know why nobody defended you? Because nobody likes you. You buy people because you have no personality. You're a sad, lonely loser who's jealous that I found someone to love me, and you're gonna die alone. I will sue you for breach of verbal contract. I will ruin you. I looked at him, really looked at him. I searched his face for any sign of a brother, any sign of guilt, or remorse, or love. There was nothing, just a parasite angry that the host had cut off the blood supply. You don't love Chloe, I said quietly. Nathan froze. His eyes darted nervously for a fraction of a second. What the hell are you talking about? Of course I do. You don't, I repeated. You just love what she does for you. She's a safety net, right? His face went pale. He recognized the phrase. He didn't know how I knew it, but he recognized it. Shut up, he muttered. Have a great wedding, Nathan. Try not to serve the guests tap water. I slammed the door in his face and locked the deadbolt. He kicked the door once, screamed an obscenity, and I heard him stomp down the hallway. The wedding day arrived. Saturday. They had managed to scramble and find a cheap, public park pavilion to hold the ceremony and a cash bar dive restaurant for the reception. It was a massive downgrade from the luxury vineyard I had paid for. I woke up, took a shower, and stood in my closet. I looked at the dark navy suit I had bought specifically for this day. I pulled it off the hanger. I put on the crisp white shirt. I tied the silk tie perfectly. I slipped on my dress shoes. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked sharp. I looked like a man in control. I walked over to my desk and picked up the cheap, plastic USB drive. I had copied the 18-second video from my phone onto the drive. I had put the drive inside a small, white envelope. On the front of the envelope, I wrote in neat handwriting, "For Chloe, please watch alone." My plan was not to cause a scene. Despite everything, I didn't want to humiliate Chloe in front of her friends. I wanted to drive to the park, find the gift table, drop the envelope into the box, and leave before the ceremony even started. She would open it the next day, see the video, and quietly annul the marriage. She would save herself, and my hands would be clean. I slipped the envelope into my inner jacket pocket. I grabbed my car keys. As I drove toward the park, my phone buzzed in the cup holder. A text from my mother in the group chat, which I still hadn't left. Everyone, Nathan is a nervous wreck. Please surround him with love today. And if anyone sees Elijah anywhere near the park, call the police immediately. He is unhinged. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Unhinged. They take my money, betray me, insult me, and now I'm the crazy one. I pulled into the gravel parking lot of the park. I saw the cheap plastic chairs set up on the grass. I saw the sparse flower arrangements they had bought from a grocery store. And I saw my family standing together, laughing. I touched the envelope in my pocket. I was going to be a ghost. I was going to drop it and run. But as I got out of the car, I didn't realize that my father had already spotted my vehicle. And they weren't going to let me walk away quietly. They were going to force my hand, and by doing so, they were going to blow their own world to pieces. I stood there by my car for a long moment, the loose gravel crunching softly under the soles of my dress shoes. I took a deep breath of the crisp November air and looked at the public park pavilion my family had managed to secure at the absolute last minute. It was a remarkably bleak sight, especially when compared to what they originally planned to have. The luxury vineyard I had initially paid for featured rolling green hills, crystal chandeliers hanging from vaulted wooden ceilings, and a massive mahogany dance floor that gleamed under warm ambient lighting. This place had a cracked concrete floor with weeds growing through the fissures, chipped green picnic tables pushed to the sides, and a few strands of cheap string lights hung haphazardly over rows of folding plastic chairs. They had purchased sad-looking grocery store flower bouquets and shoved them into mismatched glass jars. It looked exactly like what it was. A desperate, drastically underfunded backup plan thrown together by people who suddenly realized they actually had to pay for their own lives. I patted the inside pocket of my tailored navy jacket to make sure the small white envelope with the USB drive was still there. My plan was completely foolproof in its simplicity. I was going to walk up to the gift table, drop the envelope into the card box, turn right around, walk back to my car, and drive out of their lives forever. Chloe would find it tomorrow morning. She would plug it into her laptop, watch the horrible video, and quietly annul the marriage or file for a rapid divorce before their lives became too legally and financially entangled. It was a clean exit. It was a quiet exit. I was trying to save her without becoming the villain of the day. But I did not even make it halfway to the table. "What exactly do you think you are doing here?" The voice cracked through the cold afternoon air like a leather whip. I stopped in my tracks and turned around slowly. It was my father, Robert. He was wearing a charcoal gray suit that looked a little too tight around the shoulders, and his face was flushed a dark, aggressive red. He marched over to me, stepping right into my personal space, puffing his chest out to try and use his height to intimidate me. It was the exact same physical bullying tactic he used when I was a teenager to force me into submission. "I am dropping off a wedding gift," I said. My voice was completely steady. I was actually surprised by how incredibly calm I felt in that moment. My heart was not racing anymore. My palms were not sweating. I was just looking at an angry, bitter old man who had lost his absolute control over me. "You are not dropping off anything?" my father hissed, pointing a thick, calloused finger directly at my chest. "You are a pathetic, miserable party crasher. You tried to ruin your brother's life because you are greedy and bitter. You are no son of mine. Turn around, get in your car, and get off this property before I have your uncles physically drag you out of here and throw you onto the street." Before I could even process a response to his ridiculous threat, Nathan noticed the commotion near the parking lot and came jogging over. He was wearing a rented black tuxedo, but he looked incredibly disheveled. His hair was messy, and he had dark circles under his eyes. He looked severely stressed. But the second he saw me standing there, his eyes lit up with this arrogant, nasty spark of triumph. He genuinely thought he had won the war. He thought I was here because I felt guilty and wanted to beg for their forgiveness. "Wow," Nathan scoffed, crossing his arms over his chest. He looked me up and down, taking in my expensive suit, his lip curling into a sneer. "You actually showed up. I guess you just could not handle being left out of the spotlight, could you? You had to come crawl back and see what a real family celebration looks like without your depressing energy dragging us down." "I am not here for you, Nathan," I said, keeping my hands relaxed at my sides. "I am leaving a private gift for Chloe, and then I am gone. You will never have to see me again." Nathan laughed loudly. It was a sharp, grating sound. A few of the guests, including Aunt Patricia and my notoriously obnoxious cousin Dylan, turned their heads to watch our confrontation. They started whispering to each other. They were thoroughly enjoying the show, waiting for me to be publicly humiliated and sent away like a disobedient dog. "We do not want your dirty money," Nathan sneered, taking a step closer until I could smell the cheap cologne he was wearing. "You think you can just buy your way back into our good graces after pulling that psychotic stunt with the vendors? You think throwing a few $100s in an envelope fixes the fact that you are an empty, lonely loser? Keep your money, Elijah. Go buy yourself a friend. Because absolutely nobody here wants you." My father nodded in stern agreement. "You heard your brother. Get in your car and leave. Now, or I promise you, you will regret it." I looked at Nathan. I looked at the smug, entitled smirk plastered across his face. I looked at my father, who was standing shoulder to shoulder with the son who was actively, maliciously deceiving a completely innocent woman. They were not going to let me drop the envelope in the box. If I put it in there, Nathan would just fish it out and throw it in the trash the second I turned my back. He would control the entire narrative. He would tell Chloe I left a nasty, threatening note. He would successfully keep his financial safety net, and she would be trapped in a miserable life, totally blind to the terrible truth. I would be leaving her to face a future of lies, financial ruin, and eventually a bitter custody battle over kids they should never even have together. I realized in that exact second that playing the quiet, respectful, mature older brother was simply not going to work anymore. Silence is the primary weapon that toxic people rely on. They bank entirely on your good manners. They bank on the fact that you will not make a public scene to expose them. You know what? You are right, I said quietly. Nathan's smirk grew wider, thinking I was finally backing down. Glad we agree on something. Now get lost before I call the cops for trespassing. I will not leave the envelope, I said. I reached into my inside jacket pocket, but I did not pull out the plastic USB drive. I pulled out my smartphone. I did not turn around to head back to my car. Instead, I walked straight past my father and Nathan, bumping my shoulder hard against Nathan's chest as I moved. I headed directly for the small folding table near the front where they had set up a rented PA system. It was a remarkably cheap Bluetooth speaker setup with a wireless microphone resting on top of it. They did not have a professional DJ anymore because I had canceled his contract, so they were just running an auxiliary cord and a Bluetooth connection from a borrowed iPad to play the processional music. "Hey, where do you think you are going?" my father yelled, rushing up behind me and grabbing my shoulder with a vice-like grip. I shoved his hand off me with a sudden, explosive force that actually made him stumble backward a few steps. The guests in the front rows went completely silent. No one in that family had ever seen me get physical with my father. No one had ever seen me violently push back against his authority. I reached the audio table. I grabbed the iPad they were using, swiped out of their music streaming app, and went directly into the Bluetooth settings. Because it was a cheap commercial speaker, it did not have a security pin. It took me exactly 3 seconds to disconnect their iPad and pair my own phone to the system. Nathan realized exactly what I was doing, even if he did not know what I was planning to play. He sprinted toward me, his face twisted in rage. "Hey, touch that audio equipment and I will break your jaw. Elijah, stop touching it. You want everyone here to know the truth about me, Nathan?" I yelled back, my voice booming across the park without even needing the microphone. "Let's let them hear the absolute truth about you first." I opened the hidden, password-protected folder on my phone. I tapped the video file titled New Year's Eve. I turned the media volume on my phone all the way up to maximum capacity, and I pressed play. The audio blasted through the large rented speakers, echoing loudly across the open park, bouncing off the surrounding trees, and hitting the ears of every single person sitting in those cheap plastic chairs. First, there was the distinct sound of a woman laughing. It was Jessica's voice, high-pitched, mocking, and incredibly cruel. "What about Chloe? Doesn't she think you are getting married?" The entire crowd gasped collectively. A wave of shocked murmurs rippled through the audience. I looked toward the back of the grassy aisle. Chloe was standing there in her beautiful white wedding dress, holding her father's arm, waiting patiently for the traditional music to start so she could walk down the aisle. She froze completely in her tracks. Her eyes widened in confusion and rising horror. Then, Nathan's voice blasted through the massive speakers. It was loud, perfectly clear, and dripping with unbearable arrogance. "Chloe is fine. She is safe. She is a good girl, you know? She is just a safety net. She will take care of the house and the kids. But I do not love her the way I love you. You are the one I am crazy about. She is just comfortable." The short video ended. The 18 seconds of devastating audio stopped abruptly. The silence that fell over that public park was the heaviest, most suffocating silence I have ever experienced in my entire life. It felt like all the oxygen had been sucked out of the atmosphere. You could hear the faint sound of cars on the distant highway. You could hear the wind rustling the leaves. But nobody breathed. I looked directly at Nathan. His face had lost every single ounce of color. He looked like a reanimated corpse. His jaw was slack, his mouth hanging open, and his eyes were wide with pure, unadulterated terror. He looked from the black speakers to me, and then slowly, agonizingly, he turned his head to look at the back of the aisle where his bride was standing. Chloe was shaking violently. She dropped her grocery store bouquet on the grass, the cheap flowers scattering across the dirt. Her father, a large, incredibly intimidating man who worked decades in commercial construction, let go of her arm. He cracked his neck, clenched his fists so hard his knuckles turned pure white, and started walking down the center aisle toward Nathan with the purposeful stride of an executioner. "Chloe, wait!" Nathan stammered. His voice was completely pathetic, reducing to a high-pitched, desperate squeak. He held his hands up in a gesture of surrender, backing away from the altar. "Chloe, please, it is not what you think. That is old. That audio was manipulated. He faked that." He pointed a violently shaking finger at me, tears of panic welling in his eyes. "He faked it. Elijah hired someone to do an AI voice clone. He is just trying to ruin us because he is jealous." Nobody bought it. Not a single person in that crowd believed him for a second. The inflection, the specific phrasing, the laugh, it was undeniably Nathan. Chloe did not cry. That was the most amazing and powerful part of the entire scene. She did not break down sobbing. She did not scream. She looked at him with an expression of pure, concentrated disgust. She lifted the heavy skirt of her wedding dress, marched right past her father, and walked directly up to the altar, completely ignoring the shocked whispers of the guests. "A safety net," she said, her voice shaking with barely contained rage. "You used my personal savings to pay off your credit cards last month. You told me you needed help because of a banking error. You told me I was your equal partner. I am your partner," Nathan begged, suddenly falling to his knees. He literally fell to his knees in the dirt in his cheap tuxedo, grabbing at the hem of her dress. "I love you. That was a stupid mistake. It was just Jessica. She means absolutely nothing to me. I swear to God." He confessed right there in front of 100 people. In his blind panic, he admitted it was Jessica in the recording. He permanently proved the tape was entirely real and destroyed his own flimsy AI defense. Chloe's father finally reached the altar. He did not yell. He did not throw a physical punch, although I know he wanted to. He just looked down at Nathan kneeling in the grass and said in a low, terrifying growl, "If you ever contact my daughter again, I promise you, they will never find your body." Then he gently took Chloe by the shoulders, turned her around, and walked her back down the aisle. Her 4 bridesmaids followed immediately, glaring daggers at Nathan as they passed. The entire bride's side of the family stood up in perfect unison and began walking silently toward the parking lot. It was a mass exodus. The wedding was officially over. My mother broke the silence. She ran out from the front row, dropping to her knees next to Nathan in the dirt, throwing her arms around him and trying to shield him from the stairs. She looked up at me, mascara running down her face in dark streaks. "How could you do this?" she screamed, her voice cracking. "You ruined his life. You ruined our family. You are a monster." I stood by the speaker system. I calmly disconnected my phone from the Bluetooth and slipped it back into my pocket. "I did not ruin anything, Mom," I said smoothly, making sure my voice carried over her sobbing. "I just finally showed you who you have been fiercely protecting all these years. He is not a golden child. He is a parasite, and I am finally done feeding him my blood." I turned around and walked away from the altar. I walked slowly through the grass, past the completely empty white chairs on the bride's side of the aisle, and headed straight for my car. Not one person tried to stop me. Not my angry father. Not my loud Aunt Patricia. Not my aggressive cousin Dylan. The exact same people who had spent the entire previous night roasting me in a group chat, calling me a pathetic loser, and telling me I was not real family, just watched me walk away in absolute, stunned silence. They had absolutely nothing left to say. Their entire house of cards had just collapsed violently in front of them, and the wind had been completely knocked out of their lungs. I reached my car, unlocked the doors, and slid into the driver's seat. I closed the heavy door, instantly shutting out the faint, pathetic sounds of my mother crying in the distance. I gripped the steering wheel with both hands. I sat there for a minute, waiting for the emotional crash. I expected to feel incredibly sad. I expected to feel a massive wave of guilt or remorse, or even a full-blown panic attack. I had just detonated a nuclear bomb in the middle of my own family. I had caused a massive public spectacle. Everything my father had always warned me against doing, I had just done with brutal efficiency. But as I put the key in the ignition and started the engine, the only thing I felt was profound relief. It was a deep, bone-deep relief. The kind of physical relief you feel when you finally set down a backpack filled with lead bricks that you have been carrying up a steep mountain for 30 years. I wasn't the safety net anymore. I wasn't the reliable bank. I wasn't the emotional punching bag. I was just Elijah. And for the first time in my entire adult life, I was completely and utterly free. I put the car in drive, pulled out of the gravel parking lot, and merged onto the main highway heading back toward the city. I did not look in the rearview mirror a single time. By the time I finally got back to my apartment, the sun was starting to set, casting long orange shadows across my living room. I walked inside, took off my suit jacket, and tossed it carelessly onto the couch. I took my phone out of my pocket. As expected, the screen was a lit-up war zone of notifications. My father had left me 3 incredibly long voicemails. I decided to listen to the first one just to confirm what I already knew. His voice was shaking with uncontrollable fury. "You are an absolute disgrace. You have humiliated this family in front of the entire town. Chloe's parents are legally demanding we pay them back for the dress and their travel expenses. Nathan is completely destroyed and suicidal. You are completely written out of my will as of tomorrow morning. You will not see a single dime of your inheritance. Do not ever contact us again, you sick bastard." I deleted the voicemail immediately. I didn't even bother listening to the other 2. The threat of losing an inheritance was actually laughable. They didn't have any real money anyway. They relied almost entirely on mine to maintain their lifestyle. Then came the barrage of texts from Aunt Patricia, telling me I needed immediate psychiatric help and an exorcism. Texts from Dylan calling me a backstabbing traitor who deserved to die alone. I did not reply to a single one of them. Instead, I went into my phone settings and started blocking numbers systematically. I blocked my father. I blocked my mother. I blocked Nathan, Patricia, Dylan, Wyatt, and every single extended relative who had ever asked me for a favor or taken their side. I wiped my contacts completely clean. But I knew simply blocking their phone numbers was not going to be enough. I needed strict legal separation. I needed to build an impenetrable fortress around my life so they could never force their way back in. First thing Monday morning, I called a highly recommended lawyer in the city. I explained the entire financial situation with the luxury Porsche that I had foolishly co-signed for Nathan 2 years ago. My lawyer advised me that since I was the primary financier on the paperwork and Nathan had completely defaulted on his portion of the verbal and written agreement, I had full legal rights to repossess the vehicle. We drafted a formal, aggressive cease and desist letter, demanding that Nathan surrender the vehicle to a specific dealership by Friday to be sold, so I could recoup my financial losses, or face immediate legal action for grand theft and financial fraud. It was a cold, incredibly calculated move, but my family had spent 30 years teaching me exactly how to be cold. Within 4 days, Nathan dropped the car off at the dealership. He didn't even try to put up a fight. He was far too busy dealing with the catastrophic fallout from Chloe's angry family, who were aggressively threatening to sue him for the thousands of dollars they had wasted on the wedding preparations. I sold the Porsche back to the dealer, paid off the remaining balance of the massive loan, and took the small amount of equity left over and put it straight into my high-yield savings account. I contacted my building manager and changed the deadbolt locks on my apartment door. I updated my emergency contacts at work to remove my parents. I contacted HR and removed my parents as the primary beneficiaries on my life insurance policy and my corporate retirement accounts. I systematically erased my toxic family from my legal existence. And then I slept. For the first few weeks, I slept more than I had in a decade. The constant, low-level state of anxiety, the exhausting hypervigilance of always waiting for the next crisis, the next overdue bill, the next manipulative demand for help, simply vanished into thin air. My apartment was beautifully quiet. My bank account started growing rapidly again. My life finally belonged entirely to me. 3 months passed in peaceful silence. It was late January, and the city was covered in a thick blanket of snow. The holidays had come and gone, and I had spent them completely alone. I didn't put up a Christmas tree. I didn't buy any presents. I didn't attend any awkward parties. I just worked hard, went to the gym, cooked healthy meals, and enjoyed the absolute peace and quiet of a life completely devoid of drama. One freezing evening, I came home from the office and checked my metal mailbox in the lobby. There was a small, high-quality cream-colored envelope mixed in with the utility bills and grocery store junk mail. The handwriting on the front was neat, elegant, and vaguely familiar. There was absolutely no return address on the corner. I carried it upstairs and opened it while standing in my kitchen. It was a handwritten letter from Chloe. It read, "Elijah, I didn't know exactly how to reach out to you, so I mailed this to your old address hoping it finds its way to your hands. I wanted to wait until the dust finally settled and the lawyers were finished before I wrote this. I just want to thank you. What you did that day at the park was the hardest, most humiliating thing I have ever had to live through. But looking back, it was also the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. You literally saved my life. I was entirely blinded by love, and I was enthusiastically walking into a nightmare. After the wedding blew up, I hired an investigator and found out the terrifying truth about his finances. Nathan had been secretly trying to forge documents to convince a bank to let him take out a massive second mortgage on my townhouse to pay off his hidden credit card debt and to fund the luxury honeymoon he promised me. He was going to completely bankrupt me and ruin my credit before we were even legally married. He told everyone in town that you were the crazy, jealous brother, but you were the only person brave enough to tell the truth. I know exactly what it cost you to stand up to your parents like that. I know you lost your entire family that day, but please know that you did the absolutely right thing. You are a truly good man, Elijah. You protected a stranger when your own blood wouldn't. I wish you nothing but the absolute best in life. With endless gratitude, Chloe." I stood in my kitchen, reading that letter 3 or 4 times until the words blurred. A heavy lump formed in my throat, and for the first time since this entire nightmare began, I actually cried. I didn't cry for my parents, and I certainly didn't cry for Nathan. I cried because the heavy, lingering burden of guilt I had been secretly carrying, the tiny, irrational voice whispering that maybe I really was a terrible monster for ruining a wedding, finally went completely silent. I had saved her, and in the process of saving her, I had finally saved myself. That powerful letter was the exact catalyst I needed to finally start healing my mind properly. The very next week, I booked an initial appointment with a licensed therapist. I knew I had deep, complex, unresolved issues. You simply do not spend 30 years acting as a human ATM for people who actively despise you without developing some serious psychological scarring and codependency issues. My therapist was a brilliant older guy named Dr. Harris. He didn't sugarcoat things, and he didn't let me play the victim. During our third intense session, I was venting angrily about my parents. I was telling him about the massive college fund my parents had promised me when I was in high school, which they later secretly drained to pay for Nathan's expensive out-of-state tuition, leaving me to take out massive student loans that took me years to pay off. I just do not understand why they couldn't love me the exact same way they loved him, I said, staring at the pattern on his office rug. I did everything perfectly right. I got the good grades. I got the respectable corporate job. I stayed out of legal trouble. Why wasn't I ever enough for them? Dr. Harris looked at me over the rim of his glasses. Elijah, you are continually trying to find logic in a system that is fundamentally built on dysfunction. Your parents didn't value you less because of your inherent worth as a human being. They valued you exactly as much as they needed to in order to extract your resources. You were the capable one. Capable, independent people do not get coddled in toxic family dynamics. They get used. They become the designated workhorses. I sat back in my chair and let that painful truth sink in. You are grieving right now, he continued quietly, his voice full of empathy. But you need to realize exactly what you are grieving. You aren't grieving the family you lost that day at the park. It felt like attending a funeral for a family that was still breathing. But the truth is, you are grieving the family you never actually had. You are mourning the illusion of a loving mother and a protective father. Once you finally let go of the desperate fantasy that they will one day wake up, apologize, and appreciate you, you will finally be free. It was an incredibly hard pill to swallow. It meant accepting the brutal reality that my parents were fundamentally broken people who were never, ever going to change. It meant accepting that my brother was a dangerous narcissist who only viewed people as stepping stones to get what he wanted. But accepting the ugly truth was the only possible way to move forward. I stopped wishing for an apology letter that was never coming. I stopped checking my blocked messages folder in moments of weakness just to see if they had tried to reach out. I let them go entirely. I buried the toxic idea of my family, and I started focusing 100% of my energy on my own future. The next major emotional milestone was Thanksgiving. It had been exactly 1 full year since the wedding incident at the park. I didn't order cheap takeout like I used to when I was depressed. I went to the upscale grocery store and bought a massive turkey, expensive stuffing, fresh cranberries, the whole traditional deal. I spent the entire Thursday cooking in my kitchen, smelling the incredible aromas filling my apartment. I had football playing loudly on the television. I poured myself a generous glass of very expensive, aged bourbon that I bought just to celebrate my independence. As I sat down at my dining table to eat the feast I prepared, my phone buzzed. It was a text message from Samuel, my best friend. We had grown so much closer over the past year. He had been my absolute rock through the whole legal and emotional process. Samuel wrote, "Happy Thanksgiving, brother. Just heard through the local grapevine that Nathan got officially fired from his real estate firm for lying on client financial documents. He is completely broke and moving back into your parents' basement today. Talk about a bullet dodged." I read the text slowly. A year ago, reading that information would have sent me into a blind panic. I would have felt the overwhelming, conditioned urge to call my parents, to offer a generous cash loan, to fix the problem before it ruined their holidays and caused my mother to cry. Now, I felt absolutely nothing, just a mild sense of pity for the miserable bed they had made for themselves. I replied to Samuel, "Happy Thanksgiving, man. See you for golf on Sunday morning." I put my phone face down on the wooden table. I picked up my silver fork and took a bite of my dinner. It was genuinely the best meal I had ever tasted. I looked around my apartment. I realized it was getting a little too small for me. With the major promotion I had recently earned at work, and the significantly higher salary I was taking home now that I wasn't funding my family's lavish lifestyle, I had more than enough cash saved for a 20% down payment. I decided right then and there that I was going to buy a house. A big house with a fenced-in yard. A house where I set the rules. A house where only people who genuinely respected me and loved me for who I was were allowed to enter. It has been exactly 3 years since that chaotic day at the park. I bought that house I promised myself. It has a beautiful wraparound porch and a huge, modern chef's kitchen where I love to cook. I adopted a dog from the local shelter, a goofy golden retriever named Buster who greets me at the door every single day like I am the greatest person on earth. I earned another massive promotion at my financial firm, becoming a junior partner, and I am currently dating a truly wonderful, independent woman who doesn't ask me for a dime and insists on aggressively splitting the check every time we go out to dinner. I haven't spoken a single word to my parents or my brother in 36 months. I heard through distant, gossiping relatives that my father had a minor health scare involving his heart last year. My old, toxic instincts flared up for a brief second when I heard the news, a phantom pain of guilt, but I quickly and ruthlessly suppressed them. I am not their safety net anymore. They made their choice. They chose the golden child, and now they get to deal with the exhausting, expensive consequences of raising a man who only knows how to take and destroy. If you are listening to this story right now, and my experiences sound a little too painfully familiar to you, I need you to hear me loud and clear. Being someone's financial or emotional safety net is absolutely not the same thing as being genuinely loved by them. Generosity is a beautiful, admirable trait, But when you give your hard-earned resources to people who view your sacrifices as a basic entitlement, you are not helping them grow. You are just actively participating in your own destruction. You simply cannot buy loyalty. You cannot buy respect. And you absolutely cannot buy a place in a family that insists on making you earn your seat at the dinner table every single day with your wallet. If you find yourself constantly paying the bill just to keep the fragile peace, stop paying. Let the peace shatter into a million pieces. Watch how quickly their supposed love turns into vicious anger when you finally say the word no. That anger is all the proof you will ever need that you made the exact right decision. Walk away. Build your own beautiful life. Because the peace you find sitting alone in an empty room is worth 100 times more than sitting at a crowded table full of people who only value you for what you can give them. Thank you for sticking around and listening to my story today. I know it was a heavy and complicated one, but it is my honest truth, and I really hope this resonated with you in some meaningful way. Have you ever found yourself in a similar situation, dealing with a toxic family member or a partner who only wanted to use you for their own gain? How did you finally break free? I want to read your experiences down below in the comments section. And if you are still listening right now, at the very end of this video, you are part of a very exclusive group. I want you to go down to the comments and type the letter W. That stands for winner. It is our secret code for the 1% Club, the incredible group of resilient people who stick around until the very last second of the video to support the channel. Tells me that you are here, that you care, and that my story actually means something to you. If you enjoyed this video and found some value or comfort in it, please hit that like button, and do not forget to follow and subscribe so we can stay connected for the next story. Take care of yourselves, set your boundaries strong, and I will see you all in the next one.